The champ of the mic owns a night. With a mind so slick and a suit so clean, he's running this ring like a wrestling machine. From gold-plated deals to jaw-dropping schemes, he's the mastermind of your wildest dreams. Stand up, take note, bow down if you can. It's the Brilliant Show with the Brilliant One. He's the man.
Welcome into the Brilliant Show, baby. We're going to kick it off. We got a very special guest, one of my favorites, and you've heard me talk very highly of this man running one of the top promotions in Mississippi, Arkansas, and Louisiana. And we're going to bring him on, Josh Newell, here in just a second. We're going to get to that. What's up, Stephen Dixon? How are you tonight already? But let's get it kicked off with, go check out Mark Out Moments. Talking Wrestling with Pine Water Dave and Amy. Great show. Go check them out. Subscribe to them on YouTube. They're doing great things over there. And Dave, one of the top refs, and Amy is always hitting me up in my DMs. I don't know why, but we're going to talk about that and get Amy on here soon. Go check us out on brainbustertees.com. Check out the Brilliant Show. We got a new shirt, Off the Rails, because that's what the show does. Go to brainbustertees.com. Get the Brilliant Show. The link is in the description right now. Also, we got a deal we're running on Facebook. If you subscribe to me for 99 cents a month, you're going to get free merch each and every month. You're going to get a chance to win free merch each and every month. And we're going to have a drawing on June the 30th. And we're picking 2 lucky winners, so don't miss out. Check that out. And also, you're going to get some exclusive content. We got some exclusive videos for subscribers coming up, so make sure you check that out as well. And if you can't catch us live and you want to listen to us, check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Amazon Music, Audible, and give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Without further ado, let's bring in somebody that taught me a lot because I listened to him. He gave me a chance. He gave me a platform to ref. Let's give a big introduction here to Josh Newell. What's going on, Josh? How are you, man?
I can't complain, man. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, yes, sir, man. It's like I tell everybody each and every week because I know you're a busy man. What's going on, Stephen Dixon again? Doing good, buddy, yeah. Jarrett McKenzie, there's one of your fans that travels a long ways right there, buddy.
He puts in a lot of miles, and we appreciate it for sure.
Yeah, he really does. You know, I talk about BIW being one of those upper echelon promotions in the state. It's one of those promotions where it takes some time to get there. And not knocking anybody, you just got to be on a certain level to be a part of one of the top promotions. And hey, Ginger and Josh, hey, there's Miss Ginger too. She's another big fan.
Hey, Miss Ginger, I'll see you Tuesday in Oak Grove.
Finishing up with dinner, I'll be back. Okay, Humpty Dumpty. But anyway, hey, Josh, there's McKenzie. But yeah, just talk about it. And you've been running this promotion for 18 years now. I mean, 18 years. How did you put up with the stress for 18 years?
It's been interesting. There's definitely been times where I wanted to give it up. That's for sure. Memorial Day in 2007 was our first show. So we just made 18 years, last month. So we've been around. I think we're the second longest active promotion in Louisiana. I think the third in Mississippi, and I'm not sure where in Arkansas because, of course, we came in way late into Arkansas. We haven't been there since the early days. That's just kind of the last 4 or 5 years that we kind of branched out in Arkansas. And we even started when I first started in Texas because I was booking ACW, which was a weekly promotion. Every Saturday we would do a show in Marshall, Texas, but I was also doing BIW. So I tried to use my connections that I'd made in East Texas, and we did like Atlanta, Texas. I did do a BIW show in Marshall at the Civic Center, a couple things, and Marshall worked out good. Atlanta was actually the lowest attended BIW show of all time. Now, mind you, it was in year one when I didn't know what I was doing. But still, it's the lowest attended BIW show to this date of all time. It was probably about 12, 13 people paid, and then there's a few that just kind of stumbled in the door. But yeah, it was probably 25 people total, and not all of them paid.
Not all of them paid. There you go. Well, let me just go back to the year one. Like, what what manifested into you wanting to run your own promotion? How did you get started? Because I know Dr. Death played a little bit of a role in the early days as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Man. So when I was 18, I've always loved wrestling, obviously, or else you wouldn't put up with the stuff that I've put up with over the last 18 years. And you would have never found your way into that path, because a lot of people say, oh, that looks like fun, or I want to do that, or, oh, I'm going to start a promotion. And then they run one, maybe two shows, and then they go away, because it's not easy and there's not a lot of profit margin. You have to be smart with everything, and you have to work, and you have to be willing to put in 100 hours to make $100. And at least in the early days, obviously you would like to up that later, but in the early days, you're going to put in 100 hours to profit $100, and the math ain't good on that. So a lot of people, they get away pretty quick. But when I was 18, me and three of my buddies, I talked them into going to Birmingham, Alabama for an independent wrestling show that the Road Warriors were supposed to be on. I had never got these dudes to go anywhere that far. Like, they would come to a show at the Monroe Civic Center or something, but they were not going. So I had to bribe them with, like, we'll hit the bar and we'll go see some girls and we'll do all this. But finally they were like, sure, we'll go to Birmingham, Alabama with you for an independent wrestling show. And I didn't even really know what independent wrestling was when I was 18. I mean, I knew it existed, but I hadn't really seen much. So then we get there, and the promotion was in the Boutwell Auditorium, historic building, one of the best buildings you could run in the South as far as wrestling, period, not just independent wrestling, but period. The Road Warriors were in Japan, and the promotion didn't bother to, tell people that they weren't going to be there. So I just drove 7 hours from my house to go see the Road Warriors in person, and they weren't even going to be at the show. They were in Japan, and they did spend money. They replaced them with Dusty Rhodes and Rick Steiner.
Oh, wow.
Mind you, I was 18, I'm 42, so 24 years ago. Rick Steiner and Dusty Rhodes weren't exactly putting on great wrestling.
So we're talking 2001, 2000,
Yeah.
2001. Yes.
Yeah,
Because
right
me and you are
around
the same age. Yeah. So,
right around that time period. And it was GCW, which Mad Dog Dan Sawyer ran forever. Yeah. And it had Buff Bagwell was on it. Raven and Terry Funk did an I Quit match. There was some top local independent talent that was going to be on it. And then they stuck Rick Steiner and Dusty in the place of the Road Warriors, which, of course, I wasn't thrilled about, because I just drove the 7 hours to see Road Warriors, who I had loved my whole childhood. That was my team. It was still fun, though. And I was looking around the Boutwell Auditorium, and I was like, man, there's a good amount of people here. Everybody seems to be having a good time. I wonder if this is something that I could do in Monroe. And it just kind of planted there, like, is that a possibility? And then over the next few years, it was, because I'm making $13 an hour. When I started BIW, I was making $13 an hour as a 20-something-year-old kid, struggling to pay stuff. So I had to plan well ahead, put $50 back here, put $20 back here. So I started kind of doing that and looking into it and seeing if it was something that I could ever do. Usually the answer was no, because A, nothing around me had been successful. And then B, there just wasn't contacts, and there wasn't a way to make that happen. And I didn't know enough to make that happen. But years later, we have a local wrestler named Cassidy Riley, who's been on WWE, WCW, NWA stuff. He's done a TNA. He's done it all. I'd always known who he was, but we weren't friends. So I kind of reached out, told him what I wanted to do. And he's probably heard that about 150,000 times from people that they wanted to do something similar. So he was hesitant, and I don't blame him, especially looking back. At the time, I'm like wanting to shake him, like, come on, man, help me achieve my dream. But looking back, it's like, A, people that say it don't necessarily actually want to do it. And then B, it's hard. Not everybody gets that opportunity. Not everybody should get that opportunity of that extra inside knowledge that somebody like Cassidy has. So he made me work for it a little bit. But eventually he agreed to do a show with me. He was going to kind of co-book it. We were going to do it. We set the date. Well, he got signed to OVW, and he had to go immediately. So he was gone. We had already set the date. We had already booked some wrestlers, not the whole show, but a few key pieces. But he was gone. He was out. He was moving to Louisville. couldn't help me, couldn't do anything. You're on your own, kid. But he did get me in touch with Dr. Death, who was living in Shreveport, about an hour 15 up the road. And I called Doc, and he gave me a price that was super low. So I should have just been, yes, please, thank you, oh my God. But I didn't know it would be any better. And I also didn't know, I just knew that it was way more than we had agreed to pay anybody before that. So I was like, can I call you back, sir? Can I look at my budget? And he was like, kid, you got 48 hours. So I'm like, okay. So then I figure out, yes, we're going to do it. So I call him. I tell him I want him. We do the first show. Rodney Mack and Jazz were supposed to be on it, but they couldn't make it. They had a tire blowout. Doc was supposed to just do a Q&A. He wasn't going to wrestle because, I mean, he had beat cancer at this point, but he still wasn't in his prime. He could wrestle, but it wasn't, what Doc wanted to present to the crowd necessarily. But when they didn't show, he said, what were you going to pay them? And I told him, and he said, all right, you keep that. I'm going to wrestle. He didn't ask for half of it, a fourth of it. I mean, he could have said, give me half of that, and it would have still been a blessing as far as my budget goes. And he's wrestling, so I have a real main event for my very first show. So for him to say, you just keep that meant so much, because like he could have, I lost money on that show, and he could have made it, even more of a loss. But he went out there and wrestled, gave me a real main event. He had came in a day early anyway and stayed at my parents' house, played golf with them. We took him to Logan's, and everybody kind of recognized him. They were like, we know him from somewhere, but everybody was too scared to come up to the table. And eventually somebody finally came over. And once the place knew it was Dr. Death, more and more people came over and took pictures and got autographs and different things. But he told me about a million things I did wrong that weekend and like 2 things I did right. And he was like, I want to see you, survive. So he gave me his information, and he kept in touch with me for the next year or so. He would reach out and give me a call, not every day or anything like that, but once every 3 or 4 weeks. Hey, what are you doing? Try this. Oh, tell me what you're going to do. No, that's a bad idea. Don't do that. We ended up putting him on, I think, 3 shows over the next year or so. Then his health kind of declined, and he went pretty fast shortly after that. I don't know the exact year or anything. But he helped me so much in that first 6 months to a year. If it wasn't for Doc, we would have made it 2 shows, and I would have had to close down because I would have just lost too much money to kind of keep it going. So I've learned more from other people throughout the 18-year adventure. But if it wasn't for Doc, we would have never got to those stages to actually be able to learn from John Saxon or Skandar Akbar or those guys. So I appreciate Doc so much for what he did, because he didn't have to do it. I was a young kid that didn't know anything, and Doc came from an era where you didn't help people like that didn't come up in the business, and they didn't, go through all the proper channels and stuff. And he still saw enough in me to give me his time, give me his effort, even when he wasn't getting paid. And that just meant so much to me.
Oh, no doubt. Gatto, Saxton, Billy, Asian Allen, and Mr. Boyd here, and Frankie Thomas, all up in here. And you brought up somebody I like very well. Had him on the podcast. You think very highly of him. I think very highly of him. Mr. John Saxton, that is. Tell me a little bit about Mr. Saxton and how you came to know John, because my thing with John is I guess he saw a little something in me too, because he booked me on his shows, and I'm very grateful to that. But I just sit under his tree and I just listen to everything he says, because there's nothing but knowledge just spewing out. And I sit there and listen.
Oh, absolutely. That's my wrestling dad for sure. Saxon's helped me more, and I tell everybody, Saxon's helped me more than anybody that's in the wrestling business, period. Doc saved us. Doc got us to where we could continue. But if it wasn't for Saxon, I wouldn't have lasted. We've got so many stories and adventures and different things. When I first met Saxon, though, let's see, what's the best way to go about it? So I know Anthony said it when he was on the show. I had reached out to Luke Hawk, and I was going to try and book Luke Hawk for our second show, and it didn't work out for whatever reason. But he told me, you need to book the best wrestler in the South, Steve Anthony. I reached out to Anthony, and it worked out. Anthony's been with me since July of 2007. He's the longest running person with me at this point. He's been with me since the second show. Nobody else from the first show still wrestles. Hell, a lot of the people from our first show, sadly, don't even, a lot of them have passed. That's how long BIW's been around, that 18-year thing. You've seen people, retire, pass away, just so many things. I think there's one person from our first show that still wrestles, and that's just how crazy the wrestling world is. But he told me about Steve Anthony. I reached out. We made it work. Well, Anthony and Saxon have always been partners, but at that time, they were two of the top guys in the South. They traveled together a lot. They've had a million matches against each other. So I started learning a little bit about Saxon. And obviously the matches were money. And put a microphone in his hands in the South. It's special because he connects to a Southern audience so well. I mean, he's from Louisiana. He does his thing. He's been here pretty much his whole life. That's who he is. So, you take him to the East or the West Coast, I'm sure he would find a way to connect.
Oh, yeah.
But there's something different about the South and John Saxon. He's just been able to connect better than just about any wrestler we've ever had. But there was a lot of people that was like, ooh, Saxon's difficult. Saxon's this. Saxon's this. I'm a young promoter. We're still in year one, mind you, at this time. Do I want to put somebody in my locker room that has potential to be all this that I know I can't handle yet? I can't have those conversations yet. I don't know what to say in those situations yet. I haven't learned that. So there was some hesitancy on my part. But I know a problem had happened on one of the shows, and I ended up reaching out to Saxon, and he kind of helped me solve the problem. Well, in wrestling, a lot of times, if it's somebody that you're doing business with, it's fine to reach out and get some help. But if you ain't booked me, if you ain't paid me, if you ain't connected with me yet, don't call and try and get my resources. It's kind of an unwritten thing. And I had kind of ended up calling Saxon twice, still not paid him yet. So it was one of those deals where it was like, all right, I guess this guy ain't going to book me. Well, his hero's Danny Hodge. We had Danny Hodge come in for our December show, and he called me and said, I want to ride in with Steve Anthony. Here's what I'll do for one show only. That's it. But I want to show you what I got. Please put me on the show. And I was like, absolutely. So I ended up putting him on that show, and we've been glued to the hip pretty much ever since. Of course, he hated that match because it was against a guy that wasn't very talented. And I had Danny Hodge actually involved in the match and, part of the finish and everything. So that wasn't good either because Saxon wanted to go in there and wrestle somebody that he could go out there and have an A+ match with. And he ended up kind of having to carry somebody in front of Danny Hodge. So we still kind of joke a little bit about that one. But that's kind of the early introduction I had with Saxon. And honestly, I know I said that I heard all those things about Saxon, but in person and once he was in my locker room, he's never once caused a problem. He's never once been difficult. He's never once not done what I asked him to do. Has he come back with opinions and thoughts to try and make something better? Absolutely. But in the end, if I decide I don't like what he's saying, he ends up doing what I'm saying. And he'll even say, I don't think that's the best way to do it, but I'm going to do it the best way I can, and we've had those conversations many a time. So I've always appreciated that. And I like having guys around me like that. Don't just say yes. The best ideas are usually 80% mine and 20% theirs, where they're tweaking my initial idea. They're taking my idea and making it a little more theirs, which is great, and then a little better because it's fitting their character a little more than I could ever imagine because that's not my character. So I really love having guys around that, they listen, but they're also chiming in, and then we're working together and we come up with the best idea we can for the fans.
Oh, exactly. And here's my thing. Like, I've done a little bit of promoting, not 18 years of it, but
I don't recommend it.
I know. I definitely don't either. I enjoy doing what I'm doing now, but here's the thing. Like when I was promoting dude, I've watched wrestling since I was born. Since I come out of my mama, it was the first thing I saw was wrestling. Rick Rude on TV. But I'm not going to sit here and say I know how to book a show because I don't. I had a guy that knew how to connect things. I knew what I wanted, but I had a booker that could connect things and make my stories come to life. When somebody came to me and said, "Hey, what do you think about this idea?" It's like you said, if I wanted it my way, I'm gonna say it. They did it. I never had a problem. I never had a problem with anybody, but the one thing I did respect was when guys did throw stuff at me, throw ideas at me. But I never had a problem with dealing with anybody that was on one of my shows. Everybody either threw their ideas out there, and if they didn't get their ideas, they still went out there and did what I needed them to do. And that's hard to find.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely.
that's that is one of the hardest things to find now. Oh, Willie Buck up in here. I threw bricks at Brandon Turner. Yes, you did, Sing Pet. You threw more than bricks, but I always value your opinion. I'll just say that. Steve is one of the best. Steve Anthony. You cannot deny him.
Oh no, best in the South. I've said it since my
Yep.
early days.
Yep. I mean, I've been watching Steve probably just about as long as you have. I've not in person, but been watching videos and stuff of him. And the dude's just one of those guys that it clicks. He's got it.
He takes it. People don't realize how serious he takes it. The attention to detail. There's little bitty things that he does that nobody else does. Like, you go to lock up and he backs into the corner. He'll tuck his elbow and protect and, stick that knee up so where there's not a spot that as you're backing up, you could land a blow on him. And that's what you would do in a real fight, in a real situation. You wouldn't leave yourself open if somebody was backing up like that. And he does that on every little detail for the whole match, no matter who he's wrestling, no matter how long the match is, no matter if it's opening, main event, semi-main event, whatever. And he does that every single match. So you have to be able to bring that intensity and that attention to detail to even come close to matching him. And then you got all the experience. You got the athletic ability. You got the heart. You got the passion. I mean, he picked up his whole family and moved to Harley's and ran that school. That was a big deal because, Anthony's been embedded in the South for a long time, and he just picked up and moved to St. Louis and did what he thought was best for his wrestling career. And, it did help him get to Japan and do some different things. So, and the knowledge that he was able to get being Harley Race's head trainer, I can only imagine. So I'm sure, I know it didn't 100% get to the finish line quite like he had hoped, but I do think he looks back on that time period fondly, and he definitely did some amazing things. And that's what I want some of the fans to realize is you might not have seen Steve Anthony on TV with the big contract and all that stuff, but when we bring talent in, especially to a BIW show, you need to throw these guys in the Google machine. You need to look them up on YouTube. We bring in guys that have wrestled some of the stars you see on TV and had great 15, 20-minute matches with them. Guys that have been to Japan, guys that have done some of the top indies. If you Google them, you'll respect their resume. You might not know who they are just from me saying them, but if you do a little bit of research, you'll see them and you'll respect that resume. And then when you buy that ticket, you'll understand what you're about to see. And Anthony's one of the best at that, but there's other guys too. A lot of our guys have a nice little resume that people just don't understand because they haven't seen them on WWE. They haven't seen them on AEW. There's so much other ways to build your resume in wrestling.
Oh, dude, you talk about Steve Anthony. That's the one person I'm just sitting here still thinking, how did he not get signed? Because, and we talked about it when he was on the podcast. But the thing is, that dude could have been signed at any time.
Oh,
He was just that good. And when you go to Japan, you're talking about look up the resume. If you got Japan on your resume, that's already enough right there.
And especially which Japan promotion you're talking about.
Exactly.
You're talking about New Japan and Noah, two very, very respected promotions. There are some indies and different things that if you see it, it's not 100% guaranteed that they're solid. But if it's New Japan or Noah, those guys can go.
I think Frankie's trying to get a pat on the back here, Josh. Him and Steve Anthony had a banger in Houma. I think it was good anyways, he said. So,
Well, Frankie's been with me a long time too.
well, Frankie, now
not quite year
Frankie
one,
is
but shortly after.
Frankie is another one that's got a lot of talent, and he has a lot of good matches as well.
People don't realize how good Frankie is.
Exactly.
He's very good at making somebody that's a C or a D look like A minus or a B plus for a night. And then you go see them wrestle their next 5 matches, and it's nowhere nearly as good as the match they have with Frankie Thomas. And Frankie doesn't get a lot of credit with that because maybe the D match just ended up being a B plus. But again, you watch their next 5 matches, and they're all Ds. And then you go see him do it with another person, and then another person, and then another person. And the common denominator is always Frankie. So you have to go back and kind of give that person props for being able to do that because it's a special skill. There's a lot of people that, basketball players, a lot of times the greatest basketball player isn't a very good coach because they can't coach other people to be great like they were. They don't know the fundamentals quite like that because they didn't have to do it that way. They were a special athlete. They were a special talent. Where the average to, whatever, the coaches, that's different. Usually in baseball, the coach will end up being a catcher or something, or a relief pitcher that just has knowledge of the game. Frankie kind of reminds me of that. He's just somebody that has so much knowledge and information that he goes under the radar, but he doesn't need to be under the radar. He's done amazing things throughout his career too. He's probably done more WWE, appearances at different things than any wrestler on the roster. There was a stretch there that Frankie was doing extra work for WWE 30 times a year.
Yep. I mean, he was on there like week after week after week doing stuff. Singpet did bring up something. Dragon Gate. That is another one that is a good promotion in Japan. And they tried to do a deal, Dragon Gate USA, and I was all in on Dragon Gate USA when it first came in. It just never got off the ground really over here.
Now,
so.
Of course, our Southern champion, Caleb Conley, was a member of the original Dragon Gate USA.
Yes, he was.
And had a very, very good role with them. He was featured on Dragon Gate USA. So that's probably the first spot I actually saw Caleb wrestle was Dragon Gate USA. Because anytime the Japanese talent came to America, I tried to grab the DVD. Whether it was Ring of Honor, whether it was PWG, whether it was Dragon Gate USA, whatever it was. Anytime Japanese talent came to America, I was trying to get the footage. There was a time period when I owned about 800 to 1,000 wrestling DVDs.
You're about like me then.
I don't have it anymore like that, but used to.
Well, when you bring up Japanese wrestling, I'm gonna bring up Dr. Death real quick, because that was kind of deal. So when I was introduced to Japanese wrestling, me and a buddy, when back in school, now this was back before the Monday Night Wars. I'm talking 93, 94. I was 9 or 10 years old. Okay. And one of my buddies comes up to me and he goes, hold on. One of my buddies comes up to me and he goes, hey man, do you know about tape trading? And I said, no. And he started teaching me about tape trading. And he's like, one of my favorites is out of Japan, Dr. Death Steve Williams. He's just killing everybody. And I think it was him and Terry Gordy.
Oh yeah.
And doing stuff. And I'm just sitting here. I'm like enamored because he brings me these VHS tapes, not DVDs, VHS tapes. I sit here and watch them and I'm just like, that's where I first discovered Wild Pegasus, which was Chris Benoit.
Right.
Eddie Guerrero. Chris Jericho was over there. Even Road Warrior Hawk. I mean, I was getting stuff to Stan Hansen. That's how I got introduced to Stan Hansen and stuff. And I'm just sitting here thinking, gosh, man. So I've been and I think you've known this. Me and you've talked about this a lot. I've been a big NJPW fan. I love the tournament styles. I love the G1s. When you introduced the Down the Bayou tournament, man, it was like, finally, somebody else is doing a prestigious tournament. We've had the Great Southern 8, and it's come in and out. I love that tournament format. And then you bring in the Down the Bayou tournament. Why don't you key us in a little bit? Because we're down to the Final Four now. Why don't you key us in a little bit on that?
Well, yeah, the down on the bayou thing is something I've thought about for a long time. And, I have that Japanese love too. I mean, our Matt's green, like Noah's. I've brought in Japanese talent to shows. We definitely try and have a little bit more of a strong style than most promotions. So I love that. But they do a lot of round robin, like,
Oh,
here's block A, here's 8 wrestlers, everybody's going to wrestle, whoever comes out is going to be the champ. I didn't think that our crowd, A, we don't do enough shows in the year to really justify being able to do that, but B, it's very hard for the American crowd to keep up with that the whole time and follow it and be passionate about it. But if you give them a 16-man tournament, which is bigger than most tournaments that people try here in the States, usually it's like an 8-man tournament. So, but we wanted to, at least go one extra step. So we did a 16-man tournament, got a big trophy made, just kind of like Japanese style. Of course, the winner is going to get a title match too. It doesn't have to be the Southern title. They can pick another, title match if they want. I have a feeling though they'll probably pick the Southern title. But yeah, we picked 16 of the best, and we wanted people that the matches could be so different. We wanted some technical guys. We wanted some aerial guys. We wanted some power guys. We wanted some brawlers. And it's led to some interesting matches. Like last round, RJW versus Ray Fury, 2 fan favorites going at it. And
how do you let somebody get there like that?
Huh? Exactly. And RJ was almost crying at the end after the match. Because it was just so emotional to be able to be in there with somebody that you actually do trust, love, care about. And there's no anything behind the ref's back. There's no cheating, pulling, whatever. It's just athletes going at it. And you don't get to do that very often. So this tournament actually allowed us to do that. So I was glad that we got to see that at least once in the tournament where 2 good guys got to kind of lock it up and see what happens. Now we're down to the final 4. You're looking at Ray Fury. You're looking at Hunter Law, PJ Hawks, and Exodus Prime. Exodus Prime also has John Saxon now as his coach. So that might give him an edge.
Oh, wow.
But you're looking at 4 guys that are amazing. They all have a couple wins under their belt now because, like I said, we're down to the 3rd round. So they've each got 2 wins along the way to get here. So they all got a little bit of momentum. They all got a little bit of confidence going. So the semifinals is going to be, both semifinal matches are going to be really, really good.
Well, let me just look at this. Got Ray Fury, one of the top guys in this area. He's been on top for a while.
He's a former Deep South Heritage champion. He actually has the most title defenses in BIW history for that belt.
And he's just been, and he was just on the podcast not a couple weeks ago. He actually put my face in cake. He curb stomped me into cake. I'm not too fond of that, but I'll have to give the devil his due. Then you got Hunter Law. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Hunter Law. Let me get it right. Great talent.
Hunter's very underrated. I don't think people know how good Hunter is yet. And I think between like 225, what they're doing in Lafayette, and then what I got planned for him over the next year or so, I'm hoping by next year everybody knows how good Hunter Law is, because he's right there with like the Barrett Browns of the world, and I don't think people realize that yet. And it takes time. I mean, you gotta put out banger before people finally go, yep. I think he's right there with that level of talent, and you give him another year here, and I hope everybody sees that.
Yes, Matthew Holland, I'm going to be drunk, Mr. Redface. That is what I'm going to do. That is the point of the podcast, my friend. Hunter is money. I agree. And then you got PJ Hawks. I've been watching PJ since he started, but I've watched his dad when he was an XPW, his altar boy Luke.
Right.
So PJ's got the genes. He's got the talent.
That amateur wrestling background that he has is something that nobody else in the tournament has. Nobody else competed at the level that he did. And I believe, PJ won state with it here in Louisiana. So, like, he has a special trait that nobody else has that's in the whole tournament.
Oh, exactly. So, I mean, when you look at it, and who was the 4th man?
Exodus Prime.
Who?
Exodus Prime.
Nah, you ain't got to tell me. I know who Exodus Prime is. I'm just joking. He's got the teacher, like you
Yeah.
said, the coach, John
Yep.
Saxon in his corner. That's already an advantage. But this kid don't need that much of an advantage.
Oh no,
He
he's
was,
super athletic, super talented.
dude. He was on one of my. All right, when I first bought AWA, I think he was on my third show. He came in with Angel and a couple other Texas guys. He took on Chris Paps. Him and Chris Paps had one heck of a match. I hate that Paps is not wrestling no more because they had a real good match. But Exodus Prime is just absolutely just been killing it. And then I think right after he did my show, which I think was in 2023 when he did it, I think he had a few spots on AEW at that point, and he had done some extra work with WWE and stuff. You just got a marquee Final Four here.
Yeah, and that's the semifinal matches on our next show, which could definitely be main events, no matter which way you wanted to do it. But we still on the same show have Caleb Conley versus Steve Anthony for the Southern title, which was our match of the year last year. And we have Bam Bam versus Barrett Brown for the Deep South Heritage title, where Bam Bam's trying to become the first ever Triple Crown champion in BIW history. So, what match do I put as the main event that night? Obviously, Steve Anthony and Caleb's going to be the main event.
But they
Our
could all
Southern
be
title
main
fight.
events.
But what do you put semi-main event?
Yeah.
What match is going, right before the main event? Those guys are all going to kill it. And then Nate Collins versus Nate Bradley is one I've had circled forever because Nate Bradley is a guy that I've been trying to book for about a year, but he always had something. And that's because he's good. So it's, hard to get on that rotation. With guys that are really good, they might have heard of BIW and they like the roster or whatever, but they already have 3 or 4 promotions that they're regulars at. So you're not the regular. So you're the one trying to get in their rotation. So a lot of times, there isn't a date available. There isn't a date open, or there's I got to make sure that TASW isn't running or Wildcat isn't running because I have their belt. And I get those conversations because I try and book 3 or 4 months out. So they have to kind of go back to their regular promotion and, see what's going on. And I respect that. As long as you communicate it, I'm all for it. Just once you take my date, don't cancel it for another indie. If you cancel me, let it be for MLW, TNA, Mexico, Japan, WWE. I'll be the first to announce that you had to miss it, and I'll be happy for you. But if you canceled me for the indie that's 30 minutes up the road, smaller crowd, less pay, worse talent wrestling, yeah, I don't like those. Those are the ones I don't usually forgive, especially if it's last minute. I've had a lot of people week of, I got to do my home promotion. All right. And then they come back, I'm sorry about that. I really want to come and work for you, blah, blah, blah. I'm always cordial. I'm always nice, but you're not coming. You're not wrestling here, buddy. It's just not happening. Because the list,
it's long. It's long. Let's just be honest.
Even out of the people that I know about and that I want to bring in, there's 50 to 100 people I haven't got to yet. That's not counting people I don't know about or the people that I might not necessarily want here, but they want to be here. So if you count that list, it's even much longer. And I usually have to tell people no, because we do book a year out. I once December hits, I'll have all next year booked. And people won't believe me. They'll get mad. They'll think I hate them, whatever. But it's booked.
I can vouch for that, though.
And we lay out a whole year. Now, does that mean it's going to go perfect that way? No, there's going to be injuries. There's going to be real life conflicts that come up and we have to change something. There's going to be a chance for, last year, NWA kept running on the same day as me. Yeah. And I booked a little farther in advance than they do. Of course, I have a smaller ship that I'm trying to sell than they do. But, it's an important ship to me. So they would announce their stuff maybe 2 months out from my date. But, of course, I'd already had it planned for a while. And guys would have to cancel. And it was fine because it's NWA. I want the guys to have that spotlight and to be able to do that. So that's fine, but I still had to change things. And that's okay. I'm fine with those situations, but I want to be able to get the talent that I want. I don't like booking a show 2 or 3 months out and then half of the guys that I really want saying, I'm already booked that day. Dang. No, I want everybody to say, yeah, I don't got nothing. And when I book that far in advance, their calendar is free. They might not want to take it because they're waiting on something else or doing whatever, but their calendar is free. So if they want to be there and I want them there, we have an opportunity to make that happen. And that's why I book so far in advance.
Well, that's where I learned to book so far in advance was from you and from my booker at the time, Vladimir Koloff. We would always get, and he would hear this night in and night out because, I mean, we didn't just talk about it once a week or something. We talked about it every night, what we were doing, what our plans was. I mean, if we would have to look at each other and say, all right, we're booked already for a year and a half almost. So let's calm down for just a second and we'll get into it. But I'll just say this. I learned a lot from you, just being around you, seeing how you do things and how the professionalism is. And you should know, in the few years that we've known each other, I think it's been about almost 6 years because I came to my first BIW show in 19.
That sounds
And
about
then,
right.
yeah. And then I started reffing for you in about 2020, right after the pandemic happened. I came in, or right during the pandemic, I believe it was. I
Yeah, I
came in
think it
for a
was at the
show.
very end because we were
Yeah.
just starting. Mississippi actually never completely stopped. We just had restrictions. But
Mm-hmm.
Louisiana, I did have to stop.
Yeah. But I will vouch. I'll throw, I threw Vladimir Koloff out there so many times. I'll throw this name out there right now. Sammy Wright. Yeah, I know a lot of people can look at him, they can say what they want to say about the kid, but this kid is pristine at what he does in the ring. He's going to make sure that everything he does in the ring looks good. Now, is he a cruiserweight, lightweight? Yes. But I would vouch for him to put on a good match, and he said he had a good match with PJ Hawks at Lost Art of Wrestling, which they put on pretty good shows as well.
Absolutely.
And this is another guy I'll vouch for right here, Suge White. I know he just made his debut
He
at
did.
BIW.
He did.
This right here is a presence. Suge White is a presence. You can see the aura when you see him. What was your thoughts when you brought him in for BIW?
Yeah, I'd first seen him at Wildcat because I went down with Josh McDaniels, who of course is our photography guy, but he does several
Great
other
guy too.
shows
Yeah.
too. One of the best there is with a camera.
Yep.
And I watched Ryan Davidson versus Suge, and I've known Ryan Davidson forever. He's been here and there for BIW. He just stays so busy that he's never been a full-time guy with us, but he's amazing. And you could see, yeah, he might be a step or so behind Ryan, especially at this stage. But Ryan's one of the best big men in the South, period. Been in Japan, been everywhere, head trainer for bookers, all these things. But you could tell charisma-wise and personality-wise, and that Suge had that id factor. And as the match, got going, he got more comfortable, and, he was right there with Ryan. And if you can have that kind of match that kind of keeps my attention the whole way with Ryan, I know you got something in you. And then the fans, the fans keep saying, bring Suge in, bring Suge in, bring Suge in. And if you hear it enough, eventually you go take an extra look because it's like, all right, y'all were the paying customers. Let me go check this out and see what's going on here. So I watched a little more. And then, of course, Saxon's told me good things about him because Saxon's brought him into XIW a few times in different places. So it's like, okay, I'm in. Y'all don't have to sell me anymore. And then the opportunity came up that we could slip him into that 6-man tag because Angel Camacho wasn't going to be able to make it. And Suge fit right in. He was the perfect fit for the role. He did very similar to what Angel Camacho would have probably did in the same match. Except he brought a little more gangster style to it, I'll say.
I have to say, true gangster.
As he even said, I think on his Facebook, legends can get it too, because he put his hands on Tim Storm and Steve Anthony that night, and both are definitely legends.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I'll say this about Suge. When I left wrestling and I left for 9 months, and me and you talked even while I was gone. And I didn't even keep up with wrestling, but I kept seeing Suge pop up. And then I got to meet Suge, and he's a guy that you want on your show, not just because of the matches he puts in the ring, but the leadership he has behind the scenes as well, and the ears that, he listens. He's coachable. He's great.
And one of the things that Suge has that the Indies doesn't have a lot of is legitimacy and size. You know,
Yes.
a lot of your better wrestlers on the independent scene are small. You know, not all. I'm not saying that there's not good big men out there by any stretch, so don't hit my messages talking noise. But a lot of the top guys are on the smaller side, and they do a more cruiserweight style, more athletic back and forth style. The fans do enjoy that, but you have to have a few guys on that show that make them go, "Whoa, I wouldn't want to run into him at Walmart or at the bar."
Or dark alley.
Or, you know, if we're both fighting over the last piece of steak at the grocery store, I'm letting that dude have it. You got to have a few guys that are that size and that aura and that legitimacy. The problem then becomes most of the bigger guys suck. They can't have a good match. The cardio's not good. You know, they think they should just kill people because they're 350 pounds, and then you get them in there with somebody like a Steve Anthony that can wrap them up in a little pretzel. They get their feelings hurt. But when you do find a big guy that can go, that can listen, that can give you that aura, that legitimacy, that can help you move those tickets, get that wow factor, they're precious commodities. Because out of 10 big guys, I would guess on the indies, especially, let's just look at Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. If we're saying 270-pound guys and up, and you line 10 of them up, I would say 8 out of 10 probably suck. Maybe not as people. I'm not judging their character or their person. Just in the ring, 8 out of 10 probably suck. Just because you're big don't mean you're good. But when you find that 2 out of 10, when they're in your line and you see them, you hold on to those because that's how you move tickets. That's how you make memories. That's how you do special things. Jeremiah was always like that for me. His last BIW show with us was last month, or I guess this month, early this month. And he had been with me since, 15 years now. Jeremiah was one like that. Angel Camacho. A lot of people started booking Angel after AWA was one of them. After we kind of brought him in, and he did his own thing. We didn't really help him, but we brought his eyes to a Louisiana, Mississippi type market because only Texas really had known. But once we started bringing him in, lots of people were reaching out from Louisiana and Mississippi and Alabama and the coast and different places because he was special. It's not that he was over 400 pounds. It was that he was over 400 pounds and could move like a true athlete, that he had facial expressions that connected with a crowd, that he had a look on his face that made you want to sit back down in your chair, even when you were, normally you might holler at the heel and point. But with him, you might sit back down in your chair once he looks at you. He's just one of those special talents, and you hold on to those guys because there's not very many of them. And I think Suge's well on his way of being one of those guys. So, and you can't teach the size, and you can't teach that athletic ability and attach it to the size. You can fine-tune it, you can get your cardio up, you can do things, but you're either blessed with that size or you're not. So
it burns down. Yeah, look at that. We need to get It Burns Down on the podcast. We already had one member, but we need to get both members. You brought up Angel Camacho. We've both been around Angel. Angel's a special person to me. You talked about me booking him, after seeing him in BIW and whatnot. That was one of the selling points. He reminds me so much of Vader.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And he's another one of those guys that is not coming to the show just to do his match. He wants to help where he can help.
Oh, yeah.
He wants to he's the leader, he's the locker room leader, but what I'm trying to say is that he will mentor anybody in that locker room if they listen. And you're dumb if you don't listen.
Yeah, he anytime the Dallas crew that he rode in with had a match, Angel was trying to pull his chair where he could see the match, whether it was on a monitor in the back or peeking behind a curtain or whatever, because he wanted to be able to talk to him about it, on the way home or when they got to the back or whatever the case may be. And a lot of guys don't do that. A lot of guys don't take the time to watch even one person's other match, much less two or three. So I always thought the world of Angel for doing that. And then the Dallas people did gravitate to him. They wanted that information. They wanted, what'd you think of the match, Angel? What could be better? What could be worse? And I appreciated that, but I also appreciated when Angel was in the ring with a Steve Anthony or a Wardell Walker, somebody that had more experience. Even though he's been around a long time, he changed his mindset and his mode, and he would listen. It was whatever you want to do, sir, with a Steve Anthony or whatever. So I always appreciate when usually you're the leader, but every now and then you realize that you need to fall in the second. And people that have that awareness, to me, you're very special. Because there's times when you need to be the dominant alpha, but there's also times when you need to chill out and realize that maybe the ultimate alpha is in the room, and we need to all kind of sit back and listen. Because if you're in a locker room with Wardell Walker, you're not the alpha. So just sit down somewhere. You're not the alpha.
Oh, exactly. And with Angel too, man, here's the thing, not with just the guys that came with him. Like when I was doing a show at AWA, we always had multiple monitors in the back where the talent could watch shows, and Angel always had a chair right in front, watching it. And every guy, even if it was one of my local guys, that was always on our shows, he would pull them aside. Hey, tell them what they did, what they could have done. And man, they just soaked it up. And I was proud of that because I'm just sitting here thinking, this dude just drove 9.5 hours to be on my show.
Right.
And he's worried about my show. And I'm just sitting here thinking, man, you couldn't get nobody more special than that. Willie Buck says you need to bring in T Gaines, to your show. And I'm sure that, you got a lot of women. I mean, BIW has incorporated the women into the shows. They've done it over the years, got a women's title. Emmy Camacho was a champion. Cassandra Golden's been a champion. I mean,
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about your female division.
Well, Killer Kate's the champion now, who you can catch
Yeah.
on WoW, is BK Rhythm. Funny story with her, we had Buff Bagwell at a show earlier this year. One of the bigger names that you can get on an independent show at this level. Killer walks into the locker room, and Buff Bagwell says, "Oh my God, you're Rhythm." And she's like, yes. And he's like, "I'm a big fan of yours, and so is my wife." And he was like, tell her. And then the wife started vouching for yeah, we watch you every weekend. He loves your stuff. So Killer Kate walked into a locker room with Buff Bagwell and was told that Buff Bagwell is a big fan of her. So that's not exactly how you expected that day to go on your bingo card. Now, several guys, looked up to Buff from his NWO days and the WCW things and stuff like that. So he heard his fair share of compliments. But for Buff, as soon as he sees somebody to go, "I'm a fan of yours," that was kind of neat. Killa's face turned a little red. She definitely appreciated that moment. But yeah, Killa's, had not yet had her first defense. Her first defense will be in September. But she beat Cassandra, who had a nice little run. Cassandra had ran through a lot of the roster. And then Emmy was the first ever BIW Women's Champion, and she kept it almost a year. So we've had it around for 2.5 years, I think, at this point, something like that. Yeah. Now we've always had women's matches over the years since the beginning.
Right.
But it would be one match here, then we might go 3 or 4 shows without. One match here, 3 or 4 shows without. But when I first started, there wasn't nearly as many women available to come in and do shows. 18 years ago, women's wrestling on the independent scene wasn't nearly what it is now. Now the women are killing it. And there were exceptions back then. There were definitely women that were killing it back then and, main event level talent. But there wasn't a big list of it. There was only 8 to 10 of them that you could get your hands on, where now there's, 50 that you can get your hands on within driving distance. Texas alone probably has 20 to 25 that I would say are really damn good in that ring. So women's wrestling has just gotten so much better. And they add so much to the show. I can't tell you, if there's ever a show that doesn't have a women's match, how many messages I get. I would call it borderline hate mail. Why isn't there female match? Why isn't there this? Why isn't there this? Sometimes it just doesn't work out. Sometimes availability is not there. Sometimes, we just are trying to fit in these matches and we only have 5 on each show. And we're trying to tell these stories with Southern Royalty or doing this tournament or whatever the case may be. So sometimes it just doesn't work out. Just like not every show has a tag match. Most shows have a tag match, but not every single show has a tag match. Sometimes it just doesn't pan out that way.
I mean, and that's what it is. You gotta like, I hate when people have 18 matches on a show, and you're like, you're just doing too much. All right, so let me get to something. Yeah, Brooklyn Barrett would be a good one in BIW as well. Good talent. But I got to talk about the greatest talent of them all. And you know this is coming up because, I mean, as much as me and you have talked over the last few years, you know who the greatest talent in the world is. It's right there on the screen. It's Mr. Vladimir Koloff, who is now my client. You got to tell me the history of this because you have seen the transformation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Koloff's been with us a few times. He's never had like a regular spot with us, but he's been in several times. I think 3 or 4 at this point. The biggest thing with Koloff, we stay booked up so far in advance, and then at the time he was also staying so booked up in advance too, because like y'all were running 2 shows a month every single month for a while, and then he had another promotion, I believe, that he was at every single show they did as well. So I mean, that was a lot of his schedule. The first time I saw Koloff, I was like, okay, I kind of see what's going on and why people like Koloff and what the deal is. But by the time I brought him back, he had changed his whole body. He had gotten the best shape that I'd seen him in. His confidence had picked up to where, you could already tell he was soaking in everything that he could, but now he was like a locker room leader type. But it's just, you can tell with him how much he loves wrestling. Like, his mind is always going. He's very quiet. Now, if you talk to him, he'll go. But if he's just back there, he's always so quiet, and he's listening to a Steve Anthony, or he's listening to a Caleb Conley or a whoever, and you could tell just he loves wrestling, and not just his match or his thing, wrestling in general. And again, that's the kind of people you want in your locker room. I don't want you to just care about your match. I want you to care about this. I want you to care about this whole show. Now, obviously, your match is going to take precedence. It's going to be the most important thing to you. But I also need you to care about other things. I need you to not stress that you were in the first match or the second match or the third match. I need you to understand that's what's best for the show tonight. Because when the talent level is as high as we try and keep it, there's nights where main event talent is first or second match. And then 2 shows later, they are in the main event. It's just that's how the cookie crumbles that day, depending on the storylines, depending on the situation, depending on the location, depending on all those things. Plus, I've always said, to me, the main event is what I stress about the most. The opener is what I stress about the second most. So the opener, to me, you better not take it as a disrespect. You better take it as a respect, because I'm not putting 2 guys out there in that very first match that these fans are going to shit on. I need them to be engaged. I need them to love this. I need them to know that this ticket is special and that you're going to see real wrestling tonight. You might have a bad thought of independent wrestling. You might have went somewhere else and seen something that you didn't really like and think that all independent wrestling is that. So it's our job in that first match to erase that from your memory and go, wait a second, this might be different, and sit up in your chair a little bit and give us a fair chance. And if the first match doesn't, get physical, if they don't make good contact, we lose them. We lose them right away. And no matter how good the semi-main or the main is, we might not get them back. So that first match to me is the second match on the show that I stress about the most. And when I say stress, like, I can't sleep at night. Like, if somebody cancels and I have a show booked in 3 months, and it's 3 months down the road, but I have an empty spot on my piece of paper on my computer, I can't sleep. So I wake up in the middle of the night and think about it, even though it's 3 months away. And I know that's crazy. I don't recommend people to do that. It's not good, but that's how I am. It's just in my DNA. And that's also part of why I book so far in advance, because I wouldn't be able to sleep if I didn't have an outline or a plan. So
you sleep? I didn't know you slept.
I do have weird hours, as everybody knows, but I do sleep some.
I'm the same way. You know, let me see here. There's somebody I don't talk about much, and I need to talk about more as well because he is to me. I've always been a big fan of his and enjoyed his work. Is Christian Blake? You know, I like I've worked with Christian on many occasions and enjoyed every time that been in the locker room with him, and that's another great talent. He's also been to BIW as well.
Yeah, Blake's somebody that kind of reminds me, and they're different people by by big stretch as far as their personalities, but I'm just talking about their wrestling. Blake and Frankie remind me a lot of each other because, like, the
Yes.
first time I saw Frankie, I wasn't overly impressed, and I've told Frankie that, so like it's nothing new. But Frankie improved every single time, and he kept improving until he became one of the better guys in the locker room. And I mean, he's been with me 15 years at this point. I wouldn't have kept him around if I didn't think the world of him. Blake reminds me of that. You know, in the early days, Blake wasn't necessarily having bad matches by any stretch, but I didn't feel it. There was something that wasn't connecting with me personally, and I could be the wrong one. But as he kept growing in wrestling and as he kept, you know, just adding to his weapons, dude, Blake's good. Blake can wrestle anybody, any style, and he's the right size too. He can wrestle big guys and it's believable. He can wrestle small guys and it's believable. He can brawl and it's believable. He can go fast paced if it's believable. Like he has a lot of the stuff that I like in a wrestler. And the biggest thing with him and BIW has just kind of been schedule as well. Because once I get a guy going, I might have a year and a half for him. And we only do 5 to 6 match shows. So I just booked this guy for a year and a half. Well, that's a spot gone. Then we have our regulars, you know, whether it's Steve Anthony or Southern Royalty before they were gone, you know, so that takes up spots. So you might only be looking at 1 or 2 spot a show. And then depending on what's needed, it might not be the spot for Blake. Maybe I need a heel. Maybe I need a tag match or something. Maybe I need this. Or maybe I just don't want to bring Blake in to do this one little thing and then him not go away or not be back for a year because I think more of him. I don't want to give him that spot. I want to wait till I can bring him in and actually get him, you know, 4 or 5 shows and do this, and this with him. And then 225 and us have a bad habit of sometimes running the same day. Not purposely, mind you, but we just end up running the same day sometimes. And there's guys that are BIW first and foremost. There's guys that are 225 first and foremost. Blake's definitely one of those. So that kind of falls into some things too, where it's like, oh, dang, 225 had you on this, but if you could have took my date, it was going to turn into 4 BIW dates. But now that we can't do the first thing, we can't do dates 2 and 3 because I can't do the first thing. So it's just weird how things work out. And Blake's on that list of guys that it just hasn't panned out yet for it to be a full-time spot. But my eyes are on it to try and make it to where there is a full-time spot for him eventually. And once he gets it, I don't think he'll ever let it go. I think once he's in on the regular and he's one of the core guys, I don't think he would ever lose a spot. You know, he's just one of those guys.
Very talented. You know, I can't take full credit for it, but, you know, I hit you up about this, about talking to Barrett and me getting Barrett on the show at AWA to come in to take on Christian Blake. And that was right when my mom got sick. I had to leave. And I just remember, man, I was not going to be there for that match. And I was just like, this match is going to happen. You know, no matter what, this match is going to happen. We're going to make it happen. And it did. And I hate that I missed it because I really wanted to see Christian Blake versus Barrett Brown because Barrett Brown's another one that's very talented. He's been on NJPW Strong. He's done a lot of different stuff as well. Very talented individual. That's another one of your main core guys at one point.
Well, he's got the Deep South Heritage title right now.
Yep, exactly.
Barrett's the only person to hold it twice. Barrett's another one that's been with me 14, 15 years. I know that keeps being a trend. I keep saying 14, 15 years. But that's the thing with me. I'm loyal. So, like, if you come in and you deliver, I'm not looking for reasons to get you out. I'm looking for reasons to keep you here. So you come in and you do your thing, there's a good chance that we have a 15, 16-year relationship. And a lot of our roster I have that with, and not very many promotions can say that. Barrett is somebody that is long overdue for an overseas trip. He should have
Oh
been in
yes,
Japan 5 or 6 times by
I
now.
was going to say yeah.
One of the best, great attitude. Probably the only guy I have on my roster that's that small that I feel completely fine putting in the ring with a heavyweight. Because usually I hate how it looks when somebody Barrett's size is wrestling a heavyweight. But every now and then you find somebody with a special niche that they can still make it believable, that they can still make it look good, that they can still do their thing at a high level. Kind of like a Rey Mysterio has been able to do throughout his career. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
Even when he
it's
gets
hard to do that too. It's
yeah,
hard to do that.
it's not a crack on small wrestlers either. It's just a very special skill set that most people can't do. And Barrett, to me, is one of the best at being able to wrestle somebody much bigger and it still be very believable, entertaining, back and forth. And then if you do put him in with a smaller guy and have a cruiserweight style match too, that's going to be amazing as well. But he can just adapt and do so many different things. Barrett's, learned under Steve Anthony a lot. That's somebody that he would consider a mentor. And they act a lot alike in the back. They're pacing and their mind's going. And you got a left eye going over here, a right eye going over here. And they're trying to come up with the best way to do whatever it is they're supposed to do that night. And they have the initial plan, but they're trying to make it better all the way up until their music hits. Those are the kind of guys that are pacing the whole night, trying to figure out what is the best thing that I can do for these paying fans tonight. And they don't stop as soon as they walk in the building or, when they lay out their match. They keep it going the whole night, trying to figure out what's the best thing I can do for them. And once the music hits, they go out there and do it. And a lot of guys just don't think like that. They don't care at that level. They also can't do that. A lot of guys have to focus in on one thing so much that they can't do all these other things. Barrett's not like that. Barrett's special, very, very special. And a lot of times on those Texas lists, people don't mention him. He is one of the best wrestlers in Texas, for the record. Y'all need to keep putting him on y'all's top 5 and 10 in Texas.
Top five. If he's
Stop
outside the top 5, I mean, yeah. I mean, Barrett is great. I've been watching Barrett for years. He was on King of Wrestling podcast. He's actually booked him on a show. So there you go. Oh, we got somebody. I don't know who this is. Hey, Josh, how you doing? I don't know if I did the voice right, but
it was close. It was close. It was close.
Barrett versus Christian 3. There you go.
Yeah, because of course BIW got to do the second match with them. Y'all did the first, and then we did the second. And it was good too. It was.
Oh well, they were. But anytime you get somebody like Christian or you get Barrett in the ring, it's going to be a great match anyway. Watching Barrett, and like you was talking about the size, you was talking about Rey Mysterio. It does take a special skill set to do that. Because when you put Rey Mysterio against Big Show and he beats Big Show, it's believable, and you're believing that.
Right.
You can't just do that with anybody.
Saxon was another one that was real good at that. He always, had some size on him because he hit the gym regularly. But, he
was a very high proponent on Barrett as well.
Oh, yeah. Anybody that's around Barrett and still has something negative to say after you've watched a Barrett match and got to be around him in a locker room, I don't really take their opinion very high. Because if you don't like Barrett Brown and don't think he has a good work ethic or that he's good in the ring, we don't look at wrestling the same way. So
and you look at it this way: if they're complaining about Barrett, Barrett's not the problem. The person complaining is the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And his family too. Just a quick shout out to Stacy and Jim. They're such nice people, and they've
good Saxon.
And they've put in so much work as well to help Barrett have every opportunity that he's had. Barrett's busted his butt and he's did it, but he's had such a support system with them, and to still see them after all these years traveling and coming to independent shows and smiling, and Stacy with her camera and Jim filming, it's amazing. Most people don't get to do that and experience that.
No, they don't. And the thing about it is, like you said, the support system there, and they're great. And when they get to a promotion, they're so bubbly, they're so nice. They want to help you just as much as you're trying to help them. So it's not like they're take.
Oh no, absolutely
The
not.
whole family. And I'll tell you another person that was booked not when I owned it. I only booked him once when I owned it. I wish I could have booked him more because he's another great talent. But I was in many locker rooms with him before, and he had a good support system as well. And that's Eddie Martinez. Dude is killing it. He
Oh
is
yeah.
just absolute. This dude, not only does he have a look to him, but he kind of reminds me of Barrett. He's just that work ethic is there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Of course, they just lost the tag belts, him and Nate
Yes,
Collins on the last show to Hate City, Frankie Thomas and Wes Warren.
who's
Um,
another great one.
but Eddie's been with me a while. Eddie's somebody that's got that buzz. He gets a lot of high profile matches. There's certain promotions in Texas that anytime they fly in a name talent, whether it's an AEW guy or whatever, they put him against Eddie. But I do want to take a minute to say that Nate Collins is just as good.
Yes,
I
he
don't
is.
think people like everybody knows Eddie is amazing. I don't think everybody knows that Nate's amazing too. He hasn't quite had as many opportunities just yet. I mean, they're both still young in their career, but I hope that I can give Nate a platform over the next year or two that people see how amazing Nate is as well, because he's right there with Eddie. It's not a Shawn Michaels, Marty Jannetty in my eyes when they team up as horsepower. It's two potential Shawn Michaels teaming up.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They're both great because I've seen Nate, and I'm just like, because one of the first shows I saw Nate at was your show, and I was just like, because you was hyping him up, and I'm just like, all right, let's look and see, and then I watch him, and I'm just like, I like this guy. He's good.
His thing is he's so different. He has
Yes.
such a unique style. He goes into everything just a little bit different than everybody else. He might get to the same point, but he's going to go into it from a different angle, a different speed. And I like having that on a show. And he's put on some weight too. Nate's not a short guy. He's taller, but he was very, very skinny when he first started wrestling. He's took the
Oh, he
time
was
to put on
skinnier
some
than
weight.
me.
He's took the time to hit the gym and put on some weight and different things. And I'll tell you a little fun story about Nate. Like, he trains kickboxing and does some different things. There's a lot of guys that you would look at in wrestling and go, oh, they would probably beat Nate Collins up if something, happened.
Mm.
Those guys will tell you they could be 6'3", 275. They'll say, oh, I ain't messing with Nate. He's about that. So like, don't let him fool you. He isn't one of the ones you want to mess with. And that's my boy. I like, if you're at BIW for more than one show, I like you because I wouldn't have you around otherwise. You might make one, but you wouldn't make a second one if I don't like you. But Nate's one of the ones that like I love. Like, that's my boy. I have a few that are very, 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 very special to me away from wrestling too, and Nate's definitely on that list.
Cole says, I just want to take the time to say I hate Ray Fury and wish absolutely the worst. Well, Ray Fury is up here. I'm just going to say this about Ray Fury. Great athlete, great everything. Me and Barrett went 30 minutes in Westmont. You're trying to put yourself over, Ray. Stop it. Let the fans do it. No, I'm just joking.
Now, he didn't finish that. That's the match he lost the title because they went 5 extra minutes.
See, he didn't mention all that.
If he would have stopped at 30, he would still maybe be the Deep South Heritage Champion.
And Gato says he was Barrett Brown's partner once. Hey, well, that one time is good.
I think you get to say you were trained by Barrett then.
Yeah.
That was a thing for about a year on the internet, being trained by Barrett Brown.
I'm glad Jay took his yeet. Oh man, I had Ray on there. He was fired up about it. But let's see. Shake my head. We got a couple of comments coming in here. Got our caps. So we brought up Nate, and I remember. I think I was in the locker room. I think it was West Monroe or somewhere that I'd come to the show, I wasn't reffing or doing nothing, but I think I got there. I think I rode with Koloff. I think me and Koloff had come. And we were back there, and somebody said, "Yeah, you don't want to meet Nate Collins in a dark alley. He'll destroy you." And I'm just sitting here thinking, really? He's my size. And then I keep watching the guy after that, and he really impressed me. And like I said, Eddie's got a bright future ahead of him, I think. So
oh yeah, absolutely. Whether it's as a team or singles, they both bring so much to a show. I've booked them both as singles on shows. We did the horsepower thing, and no matter what we do, I know they're going to deliver.
Derek's got a sticker that says "Trained by Barrett."
There you go.
Barrett Brown, Minero Suzuki matches on YouTube. I got to go check that out. I mean, I've seen them, but I got to go check it out. It's great. Dave Miller, the greatest ref on the independent wrestling scene. This guy right here, it has got so much knowledge in his head, but he is also one of the best ref. And I'm not just saying that because I'm the worst. I'm just saying that because Dave.
I hope your neck's okay, Dave. I know it was a little sore after the last BIW show.
Oh, I've seen him wearing his neck brace on his show, and I'm just like, dude, can you take a week off? You don't have to do your show. You need to rest that neck.
Well, he's not refing the next BIW show because of that neck. He's going to come back to work in August, so he won't be refing.
You're taking precautions, right? I got you. Yes, Nate is another of the best. Yeah, he is. Here's the thing with like Dave. Dave is just one of those guys that you know is going to deliver. And a lot of people don't understand how important a ref is in a match. Like, they can mess up a match worse than a wrestler can.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I just think Dave delivers.
The biggest thing is, just having guys in there that you can trust that will, anytime something gets off the rails, they can help it get back on the rails. I'm not expecting you to work miracles. I'm not, expecting any of that. But if we start going down a path and we all know it's not the right path, I need you to help us get back on the right path. And an experienced ref can do that very easily, but it's not an easy thing. So I definitely appreciate Dave. I appreciate all of our refs, but Dave's definitely the one that every show he's booked until he tells me he's not booked. He's one of the few guys that's the way, because it's not like that with any wrestler. Wrestlers see the dates and, they used to assume they were booked if they were one of the regulars, but I change it up so much that you can't assume that. Wait till I reach out. But with Dave, any date I put out, he's booked until otherwise noted. He's going to be the ref at the show until he tells me he can't make it.
Oh, exactly. Tim, hit me up in the DMs on that. I know you and Dave, one of y'all hit me up in the DMs on that. We'll work it. And Dave brings a lot more to the table than just reffing. Like, he helps out in any way he can. As a matter of fact, coming up, what is it? June 9th or July the 19th?
Yep, July 19th.
West Monroe is what Tim was just saying there.
Mark out.
And if I'm available, Tim, I may swing right on down and come do that. But he's gonna stream it live, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, first time ever that BIW's been live. We've definitely, put stuff to YouTube later. We've definitely did some post-production, add in some commentary and different things. Like Walker Stewart, who does New Japan's, he's done some BIW commentary for things. And he did the commentary live, but then we had to go back in and put it with the footage. This will be the first time that we've ever did it live. Come watch it with us on YouTube, if you can't make it. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And Dave, great guy, like I said. But let me ask you this. Was you ever a fan of Hornswoggle?
No, not really. Not really my cup of tea, but I did appreciate.
Now, how can you not be a fan of your twin?
No.
I just I
got a little more
I had to do that.
I got a little more height on him.
Oh, no, you got a lot more height.
Not much.
I've seen him in person. I was just messing with you.
But, no.
Because you're an Arkansas fan.
I am an Arkansas fan. Always will be. Y'all might can see Arkansas stuff behind me, but let's see. We'll turn it a little bit. Yeah, there's some Arkansas stuff.
Now, what got you into Arkansas?
Well, all my family's from Arkansas. Um, and they growing up watching it with cousins and different things, and then the Arkansas atmosphere is just so cool with how passionate that fan base is, because Arkansas doesn't have a pro team. There is nothing that they can support higher than the Arkansas Razorbacks, so they embrace it with everything that they got. Where most places, they have a pro team and it might be number one, and then college is number two, whatever. The Razorbacks are the end goal in Arkansas. That is the biggest thing going. And then I'm a basketball guy, so
yes,
as a kid, I'm watching Nolan Richardson coach, and we're giving 40 minutes of hell and full court pressing as soon as teams take it out of bounds, and we're doing that the whole game. We're rotating 6 or 7 players so that we can do this, and you can't do it because you're used to playing 7 or 8 players. So we're going to tire you out. And just Nolan Richardson was a heck of a coach, and I got to see so many wins.
Well, he beat Duke. He won the national championship with Duke.
Yeah,
when he beat Duke that night.
Yeah, and so many, like Corliss Williamson and Oliver Miller, Scotty Thurman, Todd Day. There was just so many guys that I grew up watching that were amazing. And then football-wise, the greatest game I've ever attended live was Arkansas versus LSU when McFadden ran for like 300 yards on LSU that day. And LSU was the much better team. Like, Arkansas wasn't even a good team that year.
Well, McFadden was the team.
But, yeah, McFadden was the best player in the country. So you had the best team, yeah, but the best players on the other side, and he took it upon himself to just kept going and kept going and kept going and kept going. And, I wore my Arkansas gear that day, and they threatened to throw me off the top of the stadium a couple of different occasions. But it was amazing. I'd never seen anything like that live. McFadden just went off.
The Knicks are out Ray Fury, but Ray Fury does have a question. The Knicks lost. They're still not in the finals, Ray. But Ray does have a question up here, and I was going to get to it. Ray says, what is more important to you when booking talent, the look or work rate?
Obviously, both are important. So let's start with that you give yourself the best opportunity if you do both. You want to be skilled at your craft, but you also want to look like you could win a fist fight. You need to look like you know where a gym's at. You need to have the professional gear. You need to do all that. But for what BIW does specifically, if you come in and you're Brian Danielson in the ring, you could be wearing some blue jean shorts and a wife beater, and I'd probably still find a spot for you if you were as good as Brian Danielson. So I'll say work rate is the first thing that jumps out at me. But you got to be, if you don't have the look and the character and the gear and all that, you better be a 10 with that work rate. It better not be an 8 or a 9. It better be a 10 to kind of overlook some of the other stuff. And then hopefully once you get in, you'll listen and we can get you some real gear and, start working on the other part of it as well.
Well, exactly. I mean, my first thing is, like, when you're looking at stuff, those are the top 2 things you're going to look at. But I hate a guy that comes on my show and you try to give them an opportunity and their gear, they don't have no professional gear. I want somebody on my show to look like a wrestler, not something out of the backyard.
One of the biggest things we fight as an independent company is people's thought of what an independent company is, because so many people have seen clips or been to a bad show or whatever, and it's usually they're overweight, they missed their spots and stuff by a mile, they didn't have gear, and they think because independent wrestling isn't that prevalent that's what independent wrestling is. So getting them in the door for the first time is the hardest thing for me, because if they don't recognize a WWE name or an AEW name, it can be hard to get them to buy that ticket. But what we try and pride ourselves on is once I get them in the door, what's the percent that we can get them back? And I try and keep that percent somewhere in that 80 to 85 range. Obviously, you're not going to get everybody, but I try and keep it pretty dang high. And you can't do that with guys that don't look the part. And again, size can vary. I mean, on the indies, a lot of your best guys are going to be smaller. That's fine. But you still need to know where the gym's at. You still need to, have the proper gear. You still need to do all those things so that we can win that battle that we're fighting against the customer to where they think a lot of independent wrestling is the same. I need them to know that this isn't the same, that these guys are all trying to get to that next level. And the next level varies. It might not be WWE. It could be international. It could be MLW. It could be TNA. But we try to book 90% of the dudes that it's not just a hobby. They're trying to make it a career. And wrestling's hard, so a lot of them won't end up making it a career, sadly. But we want to book guys that are trying to make it a career and not a hobby.
I went to school with Jamie Johnson, and he's here. How about them Hogs last night? So I know Jamie's an LSU fan. I know he's going to be going at, but I'm going to just say this to you. We're talking about the deal here. The first show that I came to BIW, and I'm looking at independent wrestling at this time, and I'm just like, all right, there's some shows that impress me. There's some shows that don't. And then I go to BIW, and the first thing I see is APOC taking on Steve Anthony, and I believe it was outside. It was cold. It was freezing.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't in the building that night. It was outside. It was freezing, and you still had a packed house. And Steve Anthony was thrown into hay and everything else. And that's when I looked over, and I just like, this is different.
That was Brookhaven, Mississippi. Normally we get to be inside, but there was I think there was like a
horseshoe.
I think there was some bad weather a week or two before, and they were still using the inside for stuff to help everybody and to do the energy stuff and to help people in need. So they honored our date ish, but it had to be outside, and that was interesting. That was an interesting night.
Oh, Jamie's poking fun. He said, how about them Hogs? But then he pointed out another thing here. Let me get back down, Jamie, that you're a Cleveland Guardians fan, too. I know you like the pros.
Oh, yeah. I got the MLB. I watch every single game. There isn't a Cleveland Guardians game this year I haven't watched, and there wasn't one last year I haven't watched. So, I'm very loyal. Once I like a team, I ride or die no matter what the seasons are. Of course, with Arkansas, though, yeah, sure, the major sports, baseball, basketball, football, we haven't won nearly as many championships as a lot of places. But if you count all sports, Arkansas has the most national championships in the SEC over the last 20 to 30 years. But it's also counting track, gymnastics, things like that.
Gymnastics. Can you really count gymnastics? Come on now.
Can you do it?
Heck no, and I'm not going to try, but my wife loves to watch it.
Athletes, men and women, athletes.
Oh, no doubt. My wife, and you know how my wife is. We've talked about this several times, how she watches. She's very meticulous about how she watches matches. She gives feedback and stuff like that. She's like, I'm like, if you can impress her, you're putting on a good show. Because anytime she says, okay, that was good, because she's not going to lie. She'll tell you straight up. And she sat there and made me watch the Olympics, and she would tell me how the gymnastics was going. I'm like, baby, I know they're athletes. I know they're great, but you didn't see this. Look how she does this. I'm like, baby, I don't care how she did it, but she's all into the gymnastics. And, Alabama's won a few gymnastics national championships as well. So
Absolutely. But, yeah, with Arkansas, you don't have the pipeline and the access that some places do. You also don't have the money. So my realistic goal most years is let's just be competitive. Let's put up a fight. And in baseball and basketball, they pretty much do that every year. Football's definitely up and down. But baseball, I know they're going to put out a top probably 10 team every year, maybe top 15. Basketball, usually top 25. And I'm okay with that. I'm not one of those fans that my team has to win a championship or it was a bust. I look at it as we were one of the last four teams left, and everybody knows that there should be a game three today, but a kind of fluke thing happened. I feel for that kid. So it was a heck of a game. I mean, anytime the games are that close and they go to extra innings and they do all that stuff, those are the games that people remember and talk about. And Arkansas has had a lot of games over the last 30 years that people still talk about, whether it's double overtimes or seven overtimes or whatever the case may be.
Well, I can remember several times that Alabama and Arkansas in football had some. Lee Kiffin, man, he got death threats after an Arkansas game that I think it was Mustaine was the quarterback, and then he went to USC at the time. But Kiffin, was it Tiffin or Kiffin? No, it was Tiffin. Tiffin missed that field goal kick. The dude got death threats on the way back, to there. And then Houston Nuts last year at Arkansas, Saban's first year at Alabama, they went into wasn't overtime. Alabama won it the last second with a toss into the end zone. It was questionable touchdown, even though I'm an Alabama fan, it was. But Nate Collins has finally joined us here. So you speak his name, and here he comes.
Make sure you go back and listen. I put you over, Nate.
He didn't, I did. But no, I'm just joking. Nate, everybody put you over on that one. Don't kill nobody or whoop nobody up. Not the left fielders. John Saxon here talking baseball. You know what? I was in the locker room. Saxon's going over everything, and then but he's got his iPad there with the Dodgers game going on. And his son's sitting out there in the crowd with the Dodgers game going on. And once the Dodgers went up 14-1, he was happy.
Yeah.
And it was over with. Oh, the 4th and 25 versus Ole Miss. That was a crazy one.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There was no doubt that was crazy. Man, there's just so many. When it comes to football, the SEC, man, there is so many things that has happened over the years that you can't even touch. And Arkansas has been a big part of it. Ole Miss has been a big part of it. Alabama's been a big part of it. LSU. Those names you can remember. And Josh, in my opinion, I just kind of think college has lost its luster with this NIL stuff over the last year or so.
Yeah, I mean, I think parts of the NIL is probably fine, but the way that we've brought it in isn't fine. I would have liked to seen, because, I mean, these kids they go through a lot, and they're giving up their life to do that at that level, especially at these bigger schools. I would have liked to seen an amount given to each team, and it was spread out equally.
It needed to be a cap. It really did.
To each player. So, like, if the cap was $250,000, that's for your whole team. So you divide it by however many players you got, and that's how much everybody gets, whether they're the star or whatever. And maybe you could have done something to give a $5,000 incentive for, special things done, whether it was academics or, going to being All-American or whatever the case may be. Maybe you could have did a little bit extra for that. But that would have kept the numbers a lot more fair, a lot more realistic. It wouldn't have been so much business as it kind of feels like now. But you could argue that college is a business with how much money they make off these kids. So yes. I get both sides of it. I just don't think we brought it in at a very good way. It should have been brought in a little more focused, and then we could have maybe branched it out as time went, instead of just wild west from the very beginning.
It really
transfer
was.
Portal too.
That transfer portal is terrible.
I'm ready to burn that thing up. So.
The transfer portal has just gotten way out of hand. That's a whole nother story. The NIL deal, though, I think there should have been a cap on it coming in. Okay, you got a guy, and he has not got paid this money. I'm not saying he did. But he signed with Ohio State for $1 million Now, he will not get that money until he is officially on campus, but this
Right.
kid is a junior in high school.
Yeah.
He was a sophomore when he signed it, and I'm just sitting there thinking, so this dude's already a millionaire, and he ain't even got to college yet.
It's
And if he
crazy
don't get
amount of
hurt,
money.
yes. So
It's crazy
why
the
not have a
amount of money
cat?
that like LSU, Notre Dame, Texas, USC. I remember seeing like the top 10 list. I think Alabama was on there too. But it's just crazy the amount of money that they're putting out. But
Oh,
you
they're
kind of
just
have to. It's not that they necessarily want to. You just kind of have to. Um, and then you put the transfer portal with the NIL, and that makes it so much worse because now I'm going to enter the portal and I'm just going to go to the highest bidder. So, you'll give me 1.2. Anybody 1.3? Anybody 1.3? No. All right, 1.2 it is. You got me for a year, and then we'll renegotiate. And it's like, my goodness gracious.
it's just absolutely crazy. Oh, Ray Fury, once again, under the knowledge tree. What's your opinion on heels embracing cheers?
Our biggest selling point on independent wrestling is the organic situation of it all. So our biggest draw isn't the glitz and the glamour and the TV and we don't have the weapons that WWE has. We don't have the name value. We don't have that as our power. The biggest thing that we can do is build a connection. Whether it's at intermission, shaking hands, kissing babies, signing autographs, or it's in that ring when somebody hollers and you holler back at them and y'all have that eye connection in that moment. I want whatever the fans' reaction is that night to be their genuine reaction. And then I want the wrestler to have a genuine reaction to their genuine reaction. And if that means that our initial heel face plans don't get to happen quite the way we wanted them to, screw it. That's not the way it needed to happen this night. And I want to book wrestlers that are good enough to adapt as they see fit. And if they need to change something, they can change it. And then sometimes they'll come to the back and say, I'm sorry, but and I go, no, I heard it. It's cool. You did the right thing. But I want wrestlers that can adapt and see that and hear that and pick up on that. And obviously 95% of the time we get the reactions that we want. We're telling a story that we all put effort into, and most of the time we're getting the reactions that we want. But if something goes off kilter and the heels get a little love for something, sometimes you got to stop and embrace it if the crowd's loud enough. You can't have at an independent show 400 people in the building and 385 of them are reacting one way and not respond to it. You're doing yourself a disservice. So, you have to embrace it sometimes.
Definitely. And that's the way it is. And a smart wrestler will, know when to do that. Before we get any further, we're going to start wrapping up here shortly. But before we do, remember, check us out on Facebook. If you subscribe to me for 99 cents a month, you have a chance to win free merchandise every month. This month, we're giving away 2 things. So on June 30th, we're going to be drawing names for anybody that's subscribed to us. And you're going to win anything you want off Brainbuster Tees, the Brilliant Show merch. That could be a t-shirt, sticker, hat, whatever. So make sure you sign up for that. And if you're already subscribed, you're already entered to win each and every month. That's 99 cents a month. Less than $12 a year. My shirts cost $25. So if you win a shirt, you've already got your deal right there. So there you go. Let's see what else we got here. I can't subscribe yet. That's okay. You take care of your sister and your mom at the same time. That's fine. But getting back to it, we talked about John Saxon. We talked about Vladimir Koloff. We've talked about Christian Blake, Dr. Death. Now we got to bring up somebody I know's watching. I know that he's going to probably shit a brick when I mention his name. We got to talk about Sing Pet, baby. We got to talk about Sing Pet. Do you know who Sing Pet is? Do you know who Asian Allen is? Do you know who Gato is? Do you know who Split
I
is?
do know who he is. I have seen him on flyers. I have never seen a match. Never seen a
I don't
single
think he's
match.
had one.
But I do know who he is. I have definitely seen him on flyers. I've seen him comment on stuff. So I know he's a little bit of a practical joker sometimes. So those are the things that I know.
Sometimes. That's not sometimes. That's all the time. Uh, Jarrett's got a deal. Josh, your tournament going to be every year or spaced out?
We're planning on doing it every year. Um, One of the things that we're trying to do is anybody that lost in the first round this year can't be in next year's tournament. So that's kind of a incentive to not losing that first round at least, so that maybe you can come back and try your luck again the next year. This first year, we also didn't let anybody that had a belt when we announced the wrestlers in it, or anybody that had a title match coming up with somebody that had a belt. So that ruled out a bunch of people. Next year, we might not have that same rule. We might let some champions in or some contenders in or different things. So we're going to do it every year, but we're going to change some stuff here and there just to kind of tweak it to get the best tournament that we can for the fans.
Jamie, I'll just explain this a little bit. BIW is BIW Independent Wrestling. Go check them out. Like them on Facebook. Uh, like I said, I went to school with Jamie. He lives down towards the Pascagoula area. But Josh and BIW run West Monroe, Oak Grove, Fountain Hill, Brookhaven. Am I missing one here? Or is that it?
Spring Hill
Yes.
as well.
Spring
Uh,
Hill, yes.
we did Natchez for years and years and years and years. We're adding Minden to the list next year. We're adding Rayville to the list next year. Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi. In the early years, we did some East Texas. So we've been 4 states. I think at this point we're 23 or 24 cities in. Next year, I'll hit the 25 mark. Um, we've been one of the few that's kind of branched out to all the different states. And again, my inspiration was Mid South. It ain't like I created this map or anything. It's kind of just the stuff that Watts did. I kind of grew up loving that and appreciating that, and wanted to do something as similar as I could to it. Obviously, we were much different, but I do always love when people say, "Man, you're bringing back some of the memories I had from Mid South." That's one of the biggest compliments that BIW's ever gotten, and we've been blessed to get it hundreds and hundreds of times. Um, Mid South is definitely why we do Louisiana, Arkansas, and Mississippi. Obviously, Oklahoma was a big part of theirs too. A little far from my house, I can't quite make that one happen, but I'll settle for Louisiana, Arkansas, and Mississippi.
Man, yes. All right, so we're gonna start wrapping up, but I'm gonna just bring up a few names
Yeah.
here on our closeout, and you just give me your opinion on them.
Okay.
First up, I don't know if you ever heard of him. I don't know if you've met him, but or even had him on your shows. But what about the brilliant one, Brandon Turner? Have you ever?
He's a handful. You have to make sure you eat your Wheaties that morning, or else you might get tired by the end of the day dealing with it. But yeah, he's been a ref on a few of my shows, and I've never had any problems or complaints.
Let's see here. What's a goal you have yet to hit, you want to achieve as a promoter before it's all said and done? How's Ray Fury writing all these big words out?
He's a smart guy. Don't get it twisted. He's got some intelligence in there. Well, 20 years was a goal from the get go, so we got a year and some change to make that. Um, so I want to get to 20 years. I also said if we got to 20 years, we would do a BIW Hall of Fame. If we do a BIW Hall of Fame, I want to put 3 people in every year, um, and then see how far we get. I can think of 9 to 15 people that should for sure be in a BIW Hall of Fame, and by the time a couple more years come, it might be more like 15 to 25 people that should be in a BIW Hall of Fame. But that's another goal. And then my goal always has been I would love to write for one of the major companies. And when I say major, it could be a TNA, an MLW, an NWA. It could be what some people don't look at as a major wrestling company, but people in the business do know that that is a special opportunity. I've always wanted to write for one of the companies at that level.
Man, that's awesome. Yeah, and that's another thing. Like me and you have kind of some of the similar interests. Like we look at NJPW, we look at MLW, TNA, and we look at those products. A lot of people are only focused on WWE or AEW, and we look at the broad spectrum. Like me and you were talking a while back about, 2009 to 2011 or so. Ring of Honor was just absolute fire in those eras. And like Ring of Honor was just one of my favorite promotions to watch.
Yeah, I got one of my wrestlers booked on the pre-show, and we drove from Louisiana to New York, and I got to sit under Gabe's learning tree that day. He had gave me permission to come up. It was a double shot, so we actually got to do Virginia and New York. But he invited us both days, and I got to sit and talk with him both days. He took a little bit of time. Obviously, he's running a major wrestling company show, but he did take time both days, knowing that I drove that far to at least let me talk to him a little bit and learn a little bit from him. And this was back when Claudio was still at Ring of Honor, Necro
Oh
Butcher,
yeah.
Sarah Del Rey, Austin Aries, Brian Danielson, Tyler Black, who's Seth Rollins. All these guys were still with Ring of Honor.
El Generico was there as well.
Yeah, Generico was there. Kevin Steen was there.
Yep.
Homicide was there. Samoa Joe was there. So I got to be in the locker room with all those guys. And Claudio greeted every single person, whether they were ring crew, whether they were helping with the ring, whether they were putting up chairs, whether they were a wrestler, a trainee, everybody. And he helped put up the ring in a suit. So he dressed his finest. He was in a suit to come to the show. And then he still helped put up the ring and do stuff. And by that point, he had already established himself as a top guy at Ring of Honor. So that always stood out to me that, somebody like Claudio was so nice, so genuine, talked to everybody, appreciated everybody, came dressed to the finest. So he was professional in that sense. And then he's not bitching about helping with anything. He's out there helping with the ring. And Ring of Honor had a crew. So it's not like they were shorthanded. He was just doing it.
Yeah, 2010 was one of the tops. But I'll say, I want to say it was around 2009 when Roderick Strong took on Steve Anthony, and that was one of my favorite matches watching. That was for NWA. He was for the NWA Junior Heavyweight Championship. And, that era of wrestling is not given enough credit, I don't think, as well, because everybody was more focused on WWE instead of looking outside.
And we've booked several Ring of Honor guys over the years: Davey Richards, Jay Lethal, Sanjay Dutt, Rhett Titus. Just so
Khan.
Yeah, Khan ended up going. Ray Rowe, who of course WWE more famous, but I mean Ring of Honor as well. Just so many guys, and I know I'm missing a ton of guys that have done some real Ring of Honor stuff.
Matt Taven.
Yeah, I mean Taven. It makes me so mad that he's not featured on AEW. He has the height, he has the charisma, he has the look, he has the wrestling ability. He can do any kind of character, any kind of thing you want him to do. Mike Bennett's another one that we've brought in. Larry D, who did some stuff with him as well, has been brought in. So we've just, Matt Taven's one of the ones that pisses me off that he's not given more opportunities.
Yeah, Matt Taven. And I'll say this, I was not there for the show. I tried to make it, just wasn't going to happen. But Anthony Green versus Steve Anthony. How was Anthony Green in that setting? Because I've always been a fan of his.
Yeah, we've been talking on and off for a while now. And his NOAH dates, because he just spent so much time over there. We couldn't make it work. Well, finally, his NOAH stuff kind of slowed down, and we were able to make it work. And as soon as I picked him up from the airport, he actually stayed at my house that night. As soon as we walked in the door, he gave me some programs and things from NOAH because he knows I'm such a big Japanese wrestling fan. And it was stuff that I would have never been able to get on eBay or anything like that. So I really appreciated the time to put back 2 or 3 things and think of me and, give them to me as soon as he walked in the door. And then the match speaks for itself. I mean, the match was amazing.
Yeah,
It'll
you
definitely be,
definitely.
obviously, we're only in June, but that's going to be in the BIW top 10 for the year for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if it's number 1, but it'll definitely be in the top.
Oh, no doubt. Like Anthony Green's he's one of those guys that's very special, got a special skill set. And I knew when Steve Anthony was taking on Anthony Green, I'm just like, God, this is going to be an explosive match. I got to watch it on YouTube, which is not the same as watching it live. You get to watch it live. You better take it.
Absolutely.
But that match was absolutely fire. Sky Leonard, the greatest manager and the best manager, the brilliant one. Hey, there you go. At least somebody's got some sense. Josh Newell, how about Lucha Underground there? Was you a Lucha Underground fan?
Oh, yeah, I loved some Lucha Underground. I booked Thunder Rosa specifically because of her Lucha Underground stuff, not because of her, AEW stuff. And
Cobra Moon.
Yeah, I brought in Ricky Reyes as well. So that was another guy that had a nice Lucha Underground run. Me and Willie Mack have spoken several times. Probably will eventually work out. So yeah, I was a big Lucha Underground. That Pentagon is my Pentagon.
Yeah,
that's the one I want. You give me that.
Well, the Pentagon. Well, Pentagon and Vampiro, student versus teacher. That was a very compelling storyline.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, and when it unfolded, it was kind of like I was just sitting there thinking, "Man, this is great." I love the theatrics of Lucha Underground. I love that feel and everything it was. It was really great.
I was excited about AEW when it first started. I just thought it was going to be something more like Ring of Honor was and up my alley. And Pentagon had come off of the Lucha Underground stuff, and he was wrestling Kenny Omega on one of the early pay-per-views. I can probably count on my hands how many pay-per-views I've ordered in my life. And I ordered that pay-per-view just to watch Kenny Omega versus Pentagon. And the match, it was really good. But once I saw what route they were taking with Pentagon, I knew it wasn't quite for me. So I did kind of fall out of love for AEW pretty fast. It didn't last very long for me personally. But man, Pentagon had me hooked for a while.
Oh yeah, and I'm gonna just say this: I'm not. When it comes to like mainstream, like WWE, AEW at this point, a lot of people see me post stuff like I'm saying Vince McMahon's the greatest promoter, and they think that that's my opinion, but it's not my opinion. It's just a fact.
Right. And just in case, I'll throw this out there. My phone might die in a second, so if you lose me, that's
we're about to close out, Josh.
But Vince McMahon, yes, is he the best at it quality wise or something? You could argue. But as far as is he the best, you can't argue. He's made the most money doing it and had the biggest impact. Is he my favorite one of all time? No. But is he the best one of all time? Yes. It's just what it is. And there's difference in that. And people have a hard time establishing the difference in best, favorite. They think just because it's your favorite, it's the best. And that's not true. Michael Jordan was the best basketball player. Magic Johnson was my favorite to watch. Was he as good as Michael Jordan? No. But his smile, his energy, his passing, his ability to play all 5 spots on the court, I liked watching him better than I liked watching Michael Jordan. But I knew he wasn't as good as Michael Jordan. So people just have to remember there's a difference between best and your favorite.
Well, that's exactly right, because I couldn't stand Michael Jordan, and you're going to laugh at me. You talk about Magic Johnson, at least yours. I mean, mine's good. But when I was growing up, I remember the 93 finals. Man, I was a Charles Barkley fan. And I couldn't stand Jordan.
Right.
I wasn't the biggest fan of Kobe. But that's 2 of the best. That's all there is to it. I mean,
yeah, you don't have to like them to understand who's good, who's bad, who's whatever. You can still give somebody their props and the respect that they deserve without going that's one of my guys. Because, my favorite basketball players, I like Larry Johnson. I like Magic Johnson. I liked Carmelo Anthony. I liked Allen Iverson. There isn't a lot of championships in my list except for Magic.
No, but you got greatness too.
Yeah. But Carmelo didn't get one at the highest level. Neither did Iverson. Yes, they both wheeled their teams farther than they should have went, but they didn't get the championship. And then Larry Johnson, thanks to injuries, never really got a chance to get one either. But people don't realize how good Grandma was. They just remember those commercials. But before he hurt his back and stuff, he would dunk on you from any position, no matter what size you were. Larry Johnson was on a path to be an all-time great. And then he got those injuries and was not nearly the athletic person that he was, and still figured out a way to change his game and average 18 and 10 with the Knicks in those 90s teams that, always fought Indiana. And, they would get right there to the cusp, but not be able to win the championship with Patrick Ewing and John Starks and Allen Houston and Larry Johnson and Charlie Ward, playing both sports. So he was one of those.
Well, Larry Johnson also played with the shortest player to ever play in the NBA, Muggsy Bogues, baby.
Oh, yeah.
So, that's good. Josh, man, I just want to say this. Thank you for coming on. And like I said, I'm always pumping up BIW. Saxon's got something to say. So we got Dodgers coming on in 10 minutes. I'm out, guys. Well, we're about to be out too, John. And
we're wrapping it up, Saxon. We're wrapping it up, okay?
Yeah. If it was John on here, we'd still be going for another 2 hours.
Yeah, if you think I can talk, man.
But
my wife used to hate when me and Saxon would sit down at a restaurant together because we were going to be there till the restaurant made us leave. And it didn't really matter what time we walked in. We might get there at 9 and they close at 11, and we're still like yapping at 11. And my wife's sitting over there asleep in the chair because we just had a wrestling show, and she's been at work all day doing stuff, whether it was tickets, chairs, whatever. So she used to hate going to a restaurant with me and Saxon.
Well, you go ahead and just tell her that the Brilliant One said, hey, and we appreciate everything she does because she does keep up BIW while you walk around and do nothing. But
that's what they think. That's what they think.
Well, until you run a wrestling company, you have no clue what comes into it. And not only are we affected, but our wives are affected.
Oh, yeah.
Well.
Most of the time that I've been a promoter, there's been about 5 to 10 people with a license in the state of Louisiana. So when I tell people in Louisiana that I'm a wrestling promoter, there's anywhere from 5 to 10 people, depending on the year, that could say that they also were that. And there's a reason the number's so low. It's not easy. So many people go, I want to run a wrestling company. You don't.
No.
You don't.
You think you do.
Yeah.
Until you get into that situation. I'm just going to go ahead and say this. We're out of here. We're going to get Josh. We're going to get you back on soon. I got some plans for you.
Yes, sir.
We'll talk about it later. But I just want to go ahead and tell you this right now. It's at the half, and the Pacers are just blasting the Thunder. It's really? 64-42 at the half.
Really? Is Halliburton playing?
That's what I'm about to look right now. Let's see.
Because I know it was iffy.
Yep. He's got 12 points, 1 rebound, 4 assists. Siakam right now looking like he's got just a little bit more, but yeah.
I respect that. I'm glad he went out and played because you never know if you'll get this opportunity again. So if you can, do it.
Well, it's like me and you was talking before we went on. Pacers are way ahead of schedule right here. This is the chance, so they got to give it.
Yeah, this team has a chance of being good for a long time, but getting to the finals is never guaranteed. So you gotta go because you gotta assume Boston's going to be good again. You gotta assume that the Knicks might not grow on what they did. They fired their coach already. Yeah. But teams are going to keep getting better and better and better. Watch out for the Pistons. The Pistons have been racking up picks for the last few years because they've been so bad. Now those Pistons
killing it too.
Some experience. The Orlando Magic could be another team that become dangerous just because of all the youth and the talent they've been able to get. So you can't assume you'll ever make the finals again. You got to give it everything you got there. Even at our level that I played, I still remember championship games and district games and things like that. I remember getting my nose busted, and I went straight into the bathroom on a basketball court, bled everywhere, cleaned it up, went right back into the game 5 minutes later. I remember getting a concussion at practice and playing in a baseball game that night because there was no way. And they were like, all right, we're going to let you play, but don't slide or anything. I slid into home plate the very first, my first at bat. I ended up sliding into home plate. So, that's just how it is, man. You don't want to let your teammates down, and you want to do the best you can.
Exactly. Well, Josh, thank you for joining us, man. We're going to be in contact.
Yes, sir.
We'll see you later, brother. Thank
you. Thank y'all.
Lights blaze bright, it's a glorious sight. The champ of the mic owns the night. With a mind so slick and a suit so clean, he's running this ring like a wrestling machine. From gold-plated deals to jaw-dropping schemes, he's the mastermind